Hi guys, Matt here from Matt's Movie Reviews. I'm going to do something a little different today. I'm going to react to a video that I saw. This comes from Tucker Carlson's appearance on Joe Rogan. Now, I'm just going to put out there, I'm not the biggest fan of Joe Rogan. It kind of dismays me that a lot of people put so much stock in the stuff that he says and becomes such a big star he is, because I find him to be a big kind of bullshit artist, to tell you the truth. Tucker Carlson was someone that I did kind of follow quite a bit when he was on Fox News. I liked his monologues quite a bit, and I think it was an important voice. But I think ever since he's gone away from like the restrictions and maybe shackles of kind of legacy media, and he's gone out on his own, his true character has kind of really come to the fore. And the more that I hear of him and see of him, the less that I like of him. And that's gone up even more so when I saw this video about Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan talking about critics. He also makes mention specifically about film critics. And he says some things there which really bum me out. There's something I can't stand more in this world. It's in people who kind of like preach or talk in absolutes. I think we need to take some things with a little bit of grain of salt and look more in the greys and not so much with black and whites. What Tucker's been doing a lot of times lately is be talking in the black and whites. And when it came into my realm, my world, which is that of film criticism and the entertainment industry and people who maybe critique movies and TV shows, the things that he said is just crap. So we're going to go through this together, and I'm going to just make some points as we go along with this video. So like I said, this is from the conversation Tucker Carlson had on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. It's already clocked up like 7 million something views. It's already proved to be rather controversial because of Tucker Carlson's opinions on a vast number of things, but the one that I take exception to, as I said before, is regards to his critique of film critics, which is funny because what is he doing? What is he but really a critic of politicians? So a bit of hypocrisy there. But I'll get more into that as we watch this.
I was talking to a campaign reporter. I never do that anymore, but I was this week actually. And he was telling me it's like totally different. Like when I did it, you were all on it was bad actually. It was because it just cultivated groupthink, which was then leveraged by the candidate for better coverage. Like the whole thing was kind of an op actually, but it was at least fun. Like you run a charter plane and like you're flying with everybody and you hit 3 or 4 cities a day and like there are cocktails on the plane and naughty behavior and like they fed you and they kind of dealt with everything for you. It was fun. It was like a road trip, right?
Mm-hmm. So it's really interesting how he started off talking about how people in the news, especially back in his day, I guess it would have been the 90s, that in early 2000s, that he would have done the type of news reporting that he's talking about there, where he would go on the road and follow the candidates and such. How it was kind of like a big party, and he loved the fact that they were fed and they were given alcohol and such. So I think for him, what he's kind of bummed out about what's changed is that they aren't being catered to. And I always have a bit of a theory when it comes to like you just talk about my experience with some of this stuff. Like when I go to a movie screening, I always had a theory that if the studio or distributor, what have you, if you head to the movie screening and they're supplying you with food and alcohol, the more of that stuff they supply, the more of a big splash they make. The movie will be really bad, because they want you to get liquored up, they want you to feel good, they want you to have a party atmosphere. So when you watch the film, maybe you might be inebriated, maybe you might be swayed, maybe you might be a little tipsy from really doing the work that it's supposed to do. So it's interesting here how he kind of misses the days when the media were catered to and his life was on the road. Following politics was his party, as opposed to today, as per Tucker's observations, where it's pretty much like a lone wolf kind of stuff, and people are isolated and on their own. And hey, look, I think most of the time, doesn't at the end it just come down to one person reporting the truth as they see it? I mean, that's where I kind of don't get where he's coming from, but let's just go on ahead here.
And now it's just like grim. They're all driving alone in their little rental cars to some obscure town in Iowa that's there with no access whatsoever to the candidate, write up their little reports, and then they get back to their hotel and they're like writing up more for the website. And like, it's just it's such a bad job actually covering politics that only the people who couldn't make it in any other business are doing it. It's it's like a reverse meritocracy. It's only the most kind of pathetic, power worshippers would ever do a job like that.
This is where the conversation kind of changes here. Essentially, the tone of the conversation is that people who work in, say, news criticism, art criticisms, etc., the reason that they do so is because they are pathetic observationists. And they are pathetic because they can't do the thing that they're criticizing. And the whole thing I find to be absolute bullshit in regards to the opinion here. Tucker Carlson's job was and will be going forward, no doubt. He criticizes the government. Has this fucking guy ever run for anything? Not that I know of. Maybe he worked in a capacity of a campaign here and there. But he's not putting his ideas out there. He's not going out there running the campaign. He's not putting his hand up to do, represent people. He's just bitching and moaning like everyone else is. Okay, the way that you do it is the way he does it. Hey, he's made a success out of it, and that's all well and good. Some film critics have done the same. They're really good at looking at the art that's in front of them, the film that's in front of them, and putting their 2 cents forward. Some people will read and watch and listen, others won't. That's all it comes down to. Now, to go out there and talk about that people are pathetic because they have a job where they're in criticism of just, say, criticism of music or of films, TV, and coming from him in particular, coming from Tucker in particular, when his whole existence is based on the fact that he criticizes people in government all the time and criticizes policies and criticizes social moves, all this stuff. All the while, he on himself, on his pathetic little computer, trying to get his shit up on a website or his stream or his podcast, wherever the fuck it may be. He's no different. Tucker, you're no different. You stand on your soapbox and think you are, but you're not. The only difference is you have like millions of other people following you around for it. Which of benefit, by the way, you had that from your time in legacy news, which you always shit on now as well.
It's like a reverse meritocracy. It's only the most kind of pathetic power worshippers would ever do a job like that. And,
well, like critics.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly
most
right.
critics want to be writers.
They're like the worst people. Just as people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, you've actually been in show business, so you've got a better experience with them, or you have a lot of experience with them. But I've known a lot of them who worked for magazines or newspapers that I worked for, and they're the kind of people who have a lot of cats, and all the cats hate them. You know what I mean? They're just like the lowest. They all have some like sort of weird like wandering eye, and they're fat, and they're like super into porn, and totally isolated from everybody.
So calling out bullshit in this as well, he's got a nice little description, which comes down to, I think, a lot of description a lot of people have, which is the keyboard warrior type, the guy who lives in the mother's basement and doesn't do anything except for type on his fucking computer and, like, probably jacks off watching porn whenever he has, and what was the other thing he's saying, has cats and such. Let me just put some perspective on this. I'm a family man, got 2 kids, got a wife. I'm a Christian, Catholic to be specific, okay? I hate porn. I think porn is devastating for, the social fabric, and I think it's been really devastating for relationships between men and women, okay? And on top of that, I'm also, some people know this, I'm also a conservative, very much so. I wouldn't be watching Tucker Carlson in the first place if I wasn't. So it's kind of like his characterization of critics as being these fat, lazy, weird people who just jack off half the time and just go about having a pathetic existence without any type of moral, without any pathway in front of them, is absolute bullshit. And there are many other critics just like me. I know a lot of critics who are like very faith-based people, very much family people. I know people who, even if they're not faith-based, they are family people as well. The reason, and to get back on to what Joe says about critics wanting to be writers, yeah, I guess there might be a little bit of that in there. But the reason why I love talking about film, the reason why I take the time out all the time to watch the films and write the films, classic films, new films, talk to filmmakers all the time, is because I love film. I love movies. I love talking to filmmakers about the art and craft. I try to learn as much about it as I can. I put in the time, I put in words. I've been doing this fucking thing for 18 years, okay? A lot of people put in a lot of time and effort into this. All the way back to when film criticism was in infancy to now. There's been a whole sorts of other people. Now, that being said, I've met some film critics that are real pieces of shit. I have. Some people I've met that might even fit the description that Tucker is talking about there. But the kind of, like I said before, they're kind of like one brush to paint everyone in the same picture that he has here is total bullshit. And again, it comes down to you are a critic. That's what you fucking do. You criticize politicians, you criticize people in all different types of industries. You've been doing that forever. That's your bread and butter. So who the fuck are you? What are you doing in your spare time? You watching porn much? How are your cats treating you? And then on top of that, Joe Rogan, this fucking guy goes on to bring up the whole critic thing. This guy, he made his bones. Look, he was an actor, yeah. But he made his bones as a guy who officiated UFC and he critiques the UFC. Now, has he ever done any mixed martial arts competitions? Now, I know that he knows how to fight. I know that he did a Taekwondo competition when he was younger, until I think he got knocked out, and then he said, I'm getting too old for this, this isn't for me, I'm an actor, I'm a comedian, wants to focus on that, fair enough, and I know he's really good with jiu-jitsu and stuff, but all that he does on his show is criticize. That's the whole thing. In fact, that's what stand-up comedy is as well. It's a form of criticism. It's taking life observations, turning around and putting it into an art form and talking about it. He's the exact same boat as Tucker is, and as long as myself and other people in my industry are in as well. So again, this is really infuriating to watch because this guy is full of shit, and he's proven to be full of shit for quite some time now.
For one of them for a while, who was a critic for the New York Post, a guy called John Podhartz, and he was one of the weirdest, most unhappy people I've ever met in my life. And he would come into my office occasionally, and he would he had a really hairy back, and he would rub it against the door frame, and like say these kind of obscure. He was stupid, but he didn't know that he was. I mean, he was actually kind of dumb, but he didn't know it, and he would kind of philosophize. I was like 10 years younger, and I was his captive, so he would just like lecture me as he was rubbing against the door frame. And one time we went out to lunch, and we all had drinks, of course. This is like mid-90s. He didn't really drink, but he ordered this drink with like an umbrella, and it had a piece of watermelon on the rim of the glass. And he took the watermelon, ate it, and then he ate the rind. I'll never forget that, watching him eat the rind and thinking, of course this guy's a critic. It was his true love. He was editing this magazine, but like his real interest was in writing about movies, and they're just sad people who wind up
Did you ever
doing that.
read, Siskel and Ebert?
So again, I think this comes down to a really kind of personal thing on Tucker's behalf. He doesn't like this guy. I think I forgot what his name is, and he looks like he had a really bad relationship with this critic. And from that experience he had alone, it's going to paint everyone in the same brush. And look, mate, it doesn't work that way. Like people in your industry, people in my industry come from different parts of life, and I'm nothing like that guy. I haven't met anyone like that guy. Like I said before, I've met some real assholes in my time. I met some real dickheads. So in fact, that's one experience I'll share with you now. There's one critic, Australian critic, who was actually I was very friendly with. Knew him for quite some time. He appeared on my podcast like in earlier episodes. Every time we saw each other, we'd talk about how our families are doing, how things are going, what movies did you watch, etc. And then the Trump election came around in 2016. And I think what happens is that, and I think film critics are in the same boat as people like Tucker Carlson, that when it comes to politics, they like to lump people into these kind of little categories and then treat them like shit based on what category they're going to lump them in. So in regards to this critic, to me, he stopped being my friend, and he said to me specifically, I don't like your political and religious beliefs. Now, I get along with everyone. If you're cool with me, I'm cool with you. I follow the golden rule that Christ taught us, do unto others. That's how I am. And I like to think that hopefully Carlson, who professes himself to be a Christian, he talks about it enough in his podcast and everything else, and he talks about it on the Joe Rogan experience to the point where he doesn't even believe in evolution, which you can find out yourself, would have the same kind of, you wish he had the same kind of philosophy, but clearly he's a very jaded man. Can't blame him, he's gone through some stuff in his industry, and he's been marked and targeted, but when he talks like crap like this, it kind of makes me think, no wonder.
Did you ever read when Roger Ebert wrote a screenplay?
No.
It's very bizarre. It's really sexual, very strange. It's supposed to be terrible.
Of course,
I've read passages in it,
it's terrible.
But I remember.
Okay, so the movie that they're talking about is Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. Now, yes, I haven't seen it, but I know about it. I've read about it, And the reason that Joe was pointing to here, the reason he's so weird and sexual, is because it's a movie directed by Russ Myers. Now, a lot of people know Russ Myers from his kind of like the types of movies he makes, very sexually charged, kind of B grade, women with big breasts in it and such. And so there was a movie that Russ Myers made called The Valley of the Dolls. Ebert wrote the screenplay for Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. And I think he did other screenplays of Russ Myers as well. I think one of them's Up. I'm not sure what the other ones are. But I think what he's trying to say here is that the greatest film critic that he knows, I think when it comes to film criticism in America especially, the names that come up are Roger Ebert, Siskel, of course, and Pauline Kael. I think those are the number one kind of names a lot of people come up with. Not saying that they are the best to do it, but they're like the standard in regards to popular culture. When you think film critic, that's the guys they think of. And so I think what Joe's going to is, this guy tried, but he wasn't that good. And because he wasn't that good, he succumbed to a life of, just doing, writing about movies, which I think is just incredibly unfair to Roger Ebert's kind of legacy in his work. That guy did so much in regards to champion filmmakers like Martin Scorsese, for example. He really lauded the films of Martin Scorsese early in his career, and really kind of like did a lot to bring Martin Scorsese's name to the fore. He did a lot in regards to the restoration of film and such. He did a lot to talk about the film classics and talk about the craft, and he did a lot to make film criticism something to really be embraced and be fun. And I know a lot of people don't like the thumbs up, thumbs down kind of thing that he kind of brought to it, but that was for TV, and TV you got to simplify things sometimes. That's just how it works. And I think Ebert was a really great critic, especially near the end of his life. He's this man who went through, I think it was thyroid cancer. He lost bottom half of his face. Can you imagine how much pain and humiliation and stress and stuff it is to go through something like that? But still he persevered through his work, because why? He loves movies. That's why we do this. We don't do this for any other insidious kind of reason. We love film. We love talking about film. Myself, I love talking about film. I love talking to filmmakers. You can look at my podcast. I'm up to like 600 something episodes. I've done probably double that even before my podcast started. And to me, it's a fascinating art form. Could I ever make a movie? I don't know. I don't think I ever would. Look, I'm struggling in the industry that I have right now. The industry's changed so much. There's like so many voices out there. It's really hard for people to really pick and choose, and I'm getting lost in the shuffle there. But I'm still kind of marching forward. Like I said, father of 2 boys. I'm married. Can I go off and make a movie? I don't know if it's just in the cards for me. I think I might have the capacity and talent to maybe write a screenplay one day. It's always been a dream of mine to do so. But the reason why I do what I do doesn't come from frustration because I can't do something else. It comes from love of the craft and love of filmmaking. And what these 2 fucking guys don't get is that the reasons why people want to be film critics, I think anyway, comes from a really pure place. I know it does for me, and I know it does for other people as well.
We're going, oh, okay.
Yeah, they're not creative. They're creative adjacent.
Well, they don't have anything to contribute.
That's what I'm saying. They don't have creative power, right?
Yeah.
So they're mad about that.
They probably could figure it out if they had a different mindset. I think creativity is in everybody. It's just a matter of how
100% it's in everybody. It just requires honesty.
Yeah.
The impediment to creativity is lying.
Sure. And yeah, I used to say that about joke thieves. That one of the...
Okay, so now he's going to go on about joke thieves stuff. That's like his world and that stuff. But again, I just got to say it once again that these 2 guys are full of shit. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Creative adjacent. It's just a different form of creativity. That's all it is. One form of creativity is different to another. That's all it is. In the way that I try to approach my writing, the way that I kind of approach like trying to do videos and such, in itself, it's a creative endeavor. It is. I can't write like how other people write. I can only write how I write, and the way that I write is my way of expressing myself in regards to something I'm passionate about that I love. To say something like that, people who do criticism in some sort of way aren't creative is just bullshit. Maybe we're creative in different ways. That doesn't have to do with our main occupation or our main calling, in which I kind of see myself as doing kind of like film criticism in a way as being a certain type of vocation or calling in some sort of way. Just the way I'm sure that Tucker Carlson sees the way that he talks about politics and such is kind of like something that he feels a responsibility for or calling for as well. Now, because he is talking about politics and politicians, but isn't running for office himself, does that make him, creatively defunct or morally or socially or responsibility adjacent in any way because he's not in the game actually doing it. What about Joe Rogan? How about he puts on those fucking, those UFC shorts and goes into the ring and starts fighting? Isn't he's kind of like stuff, how he looks at stuff as well in regards to the fighting world to be adjacent as well? No, he did it in a creative way in the podcasting game. That's why he's as big as he is now. He got in there early and he did it in a creative way. Like a lot of other people did as well, like how Ebert did it in the way he approached things. And another thing, there's been so many film critics who have become filmmakers. Okay, Paul Schrader, Peter Bogdanovich, Jean-Luc Godard, Truffaut. There's been many of them. There's going to be many more. Look just on the YouTube space as well. You've got Chris Stuckman. He's out there he's made his own film. You got the Critical Drinker. He just penned something from. He actually is a novelist, and then he adapted one of his novels into a short film that's been directed and has gone out there. Some people want to do the filmmaking game. Some people don't want to do the filmmaking. It doesn't make them creatively corrupt. Doesn't make them creatively vacant. It comes from a passion. That's why I do it. I love movies. That's why I write about movies. That's why I look at movies. No different than a sports analyst or sports newscaster talks about his favorite teams, like basketball. That's exactly why Joe Rogan likes to talk about MMA and fighting. And the way that he did it really kind of uplifted the story. I think it was really directly responsible. One of the major components, definitely, in having mixed martial arts rise to the top in the way it has. Just the way that Tucker Carlson has done it, in the way that he talks about politics and through his monologues and such. You tell me right now that when he writes his monologue that's creatively adjacent, he's writing words on a piece of paper and he's talking about it to a screen. Just like I'll write my reviews and put it in a script form and I'll write and talk about it to a screen when it comes to my movie reviews on this channel. These guys are full of shit. They like to poke at other people, tell them that they're creatively vacant and that to be a critic is to be pathetic. Amen. All I got to say to both of you fucking assholes, look in the mirror. Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content.